Hi, the road to self-care means standing your ground. I was going to go live today on Zoom and do a free workshop on unlocking ourselves from trauma. And it came up, and that's actually why I was doing this video, was to invite you, but I'm going to actually move it to Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. And I'll put the link in the box below so that you can join me, because I want to say a few things about trauma. And I want to address this redness. The reason why I'm moving it is because I don't think you can see it as much. It was a lot worse earlier. I did put oils on it to kind of help relieve the hives. For those of you who don't know, I had surgery yesterday on my foot. I had, and this is in part self-care, okay, what I'm about to say. So I'm a big hiker, and I wore the great knuckle on my right foot. That's the big toe knuckle. I wore the great knuckle down to bone on bone to where there were bone chips, and finally got it fixed August of last year. But before I went in, I told my physician that I've had metal allergies my entire life, to the degree where I can't wear rings. If I wear anything, it has to be, sorry for all the shaking, I'll prop myself here. It has to be made of stones. I can't do metal. I get rashes, and this doctor told me everything would be fine, that that the new technology would make things easy for me and I wouldn't have a problem. So he proceeded to put 6 screws and a metal plate in, and the swelling never went down. The great knuckle has been a bluish purple for the last 8 or 9 months. 8 months, I guess. 9, whatever, it doesn't make any difference, but since my surgery. So when I went back to him in March to talk to him about this, he assured me that it wasn't the metal. So, but he required that I have a physical. He was going to go in, and there was a granular tissue building up in there. So he was going to go in and cut that out. So in order to do that, I needed to go in for my annual. So I did. But this time I had to go to a different doctor because of the insurance. The doctor that I did go to basically retired. So I went to a new physician, and he did all the work that was necessary, did the physical, and he referred me to a second podiatrist just to get another opinion, who I just admire greatly because he listened to me. And I told him, I feel like this is a metal allergy. So we were able to confirm that the bone had fused enough to where the metal could come out. There was no infection in there. And so when we went in yesterday, I finally got the surgery scheduled yesterday. So he went in, and when I came into recovery, he came in to check on me, and he said, I was blown away by what came out of that. There was fluid, there's a lot of granular tissue. And I'm going to post the pictures of the metal in my story. But the point that I'm getting at is that what he confirmed is that it was in fact an allergy to the metal. So I'm really relieved to have it out. Now, that said, more to the point of this video. Well, that's standing my ground. I finally stood my ground regarding my metal allergy, and I found a doctor who was willing to listen. I'm really sorry about the shaking. I think part of it is I'm still recovering from the surgery. Anyway, a couple of things while I was getting prepped for surgery. The nurse, the pre-op nurse, we were just talking. We were having a good time. It was early in the morning, and we were just talking stuff. We were talking kids. And he asked me how many kids I had, and I told him 6. I told him that the boys were not as physically aggressive. They weren't really even physically aggressive with each other at all. Sorry. Anyway, my oldest one is on the spectrum, and I adopted 2 girls, both of them special needs in their own ways, coming from a very traumatic background as young girls. So anyway, I was talking to them. Now, I hike and have been hiking and doing yoga for years. And up until my surgery yesterday, I've been walking, doing some mild hiking every single day. Consistently, my blood pressure has always been extremely low. I mean, maybe at the most, at the highest I've ever seen, the top number, the systolic number, go to 110, and the bottom number being as low as 68. To the point where they will question whether or not I'm actually taking blood pressure medications. Yesterday, while talking about my kids and their antics, and the way the girls used to, this is actually going to be an interesting video. So the way the girls actually used to interact was, my oldest one was extraordinarily passive aggressive, but I wasn't aware of that. She just had this very sweet temperament. And the youngest one would always lash out and just wallop her over the head with something hard. And I couldn't understand what the heck was going on. So I used to go in and I would stand down the hallway and see what I could see what these two were doing. And I found that my older one was needling her younger sister, to where the young one would just, she'd keep it under control, and then wham, there you go. And I find this interesting because if you have two people who are passive aggressive, their relationship doesn't last long if we're not emotionally resilient. Okay, if we don't really work on managing our emotions and our interpretations of our stories, it does lead to emotional reactions that are not. And the interesting thing is this, one thought that came to me is, honesty is huge. And we can say, well, this is honestly, these are my honest emotions. Well, that may be the case. But the emotions that you're having are actually a reaction to a story. Okay? It's a reaction to a thought. So being factual about the story, like being factual about what your experience was without the emotion, is being honest. When we tap into the emotions and go, well, those are real for the moment. And there may have been some, but again, when we're going through a traumatic situation, obviously there's going to be emotions and thoughts that are coming up around that. But if we can just remain factual and distance ourselves emotionally from it and just begin to repeat the facts, there's a lot of healing that can take place around that. And what I've noticed is that two passive aggressive people don't last together very long because they just, it becomes boring, especially if you're emotionally shut down. Let me say it that way. And my older daughter was shut down. I've witnessed adults being emotionally shut down. Being emotionally shut down means we don't like to sit with those emotions. They are uncomfortable because they do facilitate memories and, potential triggers. So people learn to keep that quiet, but we're emotional creatures. And so in order to feel something, when we start to feel emotionally numb, passive aggressive behavior is basically a self-harm, the way I see it, having worked in recovery like I have. Anyway, this is important because the girls, one was passive aggressive and the other one was highly reactionary. She could keep it under control until she couldn't, and she would explode. And I've seen this repeatedly between siblings. I've seen it in couples. And so becoming more emotionally, dealing with our own individual trauma. And I don't mean to say that somebody's, I'm trying to level the playing ground here with trauma. So the point of the blood pressure is, while telling my story, it's clear that the trauma is stored. And so to give you some ideas, I used to get vomited on a lot, like deliberate. I mean, these two could vomit like for no reason, just be able to do that. And they could do it quite easily. It was kind of freaky. And so, I'm noticing my blood pressure going up right now. So there's obviously still that cell memory, right? When we talk about doing an emotional detox, there's really no emotion to detox. It's more about realigning our body with fact, realigning our cells with fact, and breathing love into that. And that's where self-care comes in. So my blood pressure yesterday, when they were taking me in, went to 151/96. That's extraordinarily high for me. And of course it came down as soon as they put me to sleep, and I was no longer talking about my situation. So that said, when the anesthesiologist came in to query me about my allergies to medications, I told her I would get hives from codeine, and I used to get itchy from hydrocodone. Well, I was adamant that I really just, I get this, I know this. Here's the hives, okay? Well, she said that she was going to put in an order for hydrocodone just in case, and that if I got itchy, they could administer Benadryl. But nothing was ever said. The pain medication I came home with was an ibuprofen 800, which I've never reacted to. But in the middle of the night, this flared up. And like I said, it's looking better than it was. But standing my ground, I'm pissed right now. This is self-care. And I've already called into the physician, the surgeon. And come to find out, she administered Dilaudid, which is a synthetic morphine, which is in the same line as codeine. So there you have it. She didn't listen to me, and now I'm angry. Fortunately, my breathing isn't compromised. It's just hives, and like I said, I've treated it with oils to bring it down, to stabilize, to the best of my ability, my immune system. Because what you see happening here, what this is a hyperactive immune system. And oh gosh, I'm just disappointed that my word wasn't honored. But back to what I'm trying to get at here is that self-care is essential. It is essential. And one of the things that I learned at a very early age, self-care was an act of selfishness, that I got punished for taking care of myself. And we're all naturally wired. And how dare anybody tell anyone that it's not okay to take care of yourself? Raising 3 neurodivergent, 3 special needs children, flashing back on what I was just explaining to you, those moments where I would get puked on and my blood pressure rising, it wasn't about, I have distanced myself from that. It's not an emotional reaction to being vomited on. It's an emotional reaction to feeling like I failed these girls. Because what I did was I took the necessary steps to take care of me ahead of them so that I could be more present and able to pivot as they needed. But one more time, I got punished for it. And so what kept coming up, and what still is coming up, is I feel like a failure. So now that's my interpretation. I didn't fail them by taking care of myself. So my question to you is, what sort of guilt comes up for you around self-care? Are you even aware? I mean, because the emotions that come up when you take care of, or are you avoiding self-care? I mean, really standing for your wellness. That's the point to this unlocking from trauma. Because it's deep. The trauma, the shit happens, okay? Unfortunately, this shit happens. But if we're not, and you may say, I've done the work to forgive, and I've done the work to detach, but what interpretations are still going on within you that lead to anxiety, that lead to sleepless or restless nights? All of that matters. So I invite you to consider where you are giving up on yourself and because of these emotions, because you don't want to feel like a failure. You want to be there for your children. You're more there for your children when you actually stand for your self-care. So that said, Monday at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, 2 o'clock my time, which is Mountain, we're going to dive into unlocking trauma. You're welcome to join me. You have to be live. There's no replays for this one. But I'd love to see you there so that we can talk. This is a workshop. We can talk about trauma. Seating is limited. So I invite you to click on that link, or you can go to my bio and click on that link, sign up, and see you on Monday. Meantime, I'm going to keep taking care of myself today. All right. Bye.